way the apps are designed are very good. Kids who initially couldn't do any typing at all when they started and now know where to find most of the letters on the keyboard, which is really good. And so it doesn't matter what level they started, everyone's improving. Since many of the nonverbal kids are also visual learners, I think the apps are very helpful because they have a lot of visual cues and ways to teach them to learn how to type. So you can cater certain levels to each child. You can make it fit their learning or the levels they're at, and it's very cool because you can always, like, once they improve, change it up, make it more challenging, and so they never get bored. It's not just illustrations, it's actual photos of things, which I think is super good. And I like how there's such a diversity within the apps. Like, you learn a lot of things. It's really good because it's a really broad education. I did a major in developmental psychology. I'm originally from Kenya.
And do you like it here?
Yes, I love it here.
Okay.
So I had some classes that skimmed over the autism spectrum, and we learned the various traits or how to perhaps diagnose people with autism. But a lot of the things I learned were not like real life experiences. We were never exposed to people who actually had autism, and we were just shown YouTube videos and taught things like that the kids don't really share their emotions or don't want to make connections with people. So I was very surprised when I came to work here because all the kids like wanted to hold your hand and be tickled, and I was like, oh, well, they're making a lot of eye contact with me and want to play. So I was confused about what I learned about them not wanting to have personal connections with people. The most important thing I learned was not to define the child by their autism. Basically treat the child like any normal child and not treat them like they're extra special or anything like that, because you don't want them to grow into that mindset where they start needing extra help all the time. If you want them to be independent, you treat them like you treat anyone else. Not emphasize like, oh, you're autistic, and then they grow up thinking like, this is unchangeable, there's nothing I can do about it, I'll never learn. So if people keep treating them that way, then they will end up thinking that they can't do anything about it. I noticed when the kids, some of them, like when they started, had more behaviors, and then when they were more excited about learning or they were participating more in the apps and doing it more independently, they had less behaviors. So for example, there was this one kid who started off about the same time I started, and the first week he was biting himself every minute all the time, and then maybe a month later working with him, he didn't bite himself once the whole session. And I think now that he knows how the system works, he knows that he's here, he comes to do work, he doesn't need to bite himself all the time, because we know how to like have an exchange of communication even though it's non-verbal. Like ask him questions and he'll say certain like short phrases or words and we'll know what it means because we get used to working with him. Initially, I guess a lot of people would say, well, why are you focusing on academics if these kids, they're gonna need to learn life skills to live and all this nonsense about like, you know, like living skills. But then it's like in normal schools, kids are not taught about you know, how to file taxes or mortgages, things that they'll do in real life, and they figure it out. So I think it's the same thing with autistic kids. They're excited to learn about subjects, so it's important to teach them things they're excited about and like to learn. It's probably a real bore teaching them how to do the laundry or teaching them how to like cook even, and because it's very accessible to get all these things done for you. So if they can learn something else that they're interested in, I think it's important, because then like they'll end up becoming more independent because they'll know they have interests and can pursue them. I think it's important that autistic children and their parents don't give up or fall into despair. Because for example, like if you realize you're 30 or 40 and you're like, I never learned a musical instrument, and you want to learn it or learn a new language, you know, there's nothing stopping you and you're capable of doing it. You just have to put in the time. The same with autistic kids. It's not too late. I think I've been learning a lot actually working with the kids, more than I thought I would have. I'm learning something new every day, not just with the apps and how they type, but actually like how to read their body language, how to communicate with them, how to tell if they need something, if they're in pain. And I think it's been a really good learning experience, and I hope it will continue to be so from here on out.